Hello, guys. It's Hernan Castro with the Desert Alchemist, and I wanted to talk about mushroom supplements today. I'm going to explain to you how supplements work, why it's important to take them, what kind of products you should be looking for, and a little bit of the chemistry behind mushrooms. So, here is a mushroom called turkey tail. Now, if I wanted to make an extract out of this mushroom, I have to understand some biology and some chemistry. Now, the mushroom itself is made out of a bunch of cells, and the cells of the fungus are mostly comprised of chitin, and this goes for any kind of fungus. Most funguses, their cell walls are comprised of primarily chitin, and chitin is a carbohydrate that makes insect shells, lobster shells, shrimp shells, crab. Their shells are made out of chitin. So it is a strong carbohydrate for which we do not have any enzymes for. So we cannot digest chitin. So it is important that when you're trying to buy a mushroom supplement that you understand this. Chitin is like cellulose, and when you eat fiber, which is cellulose, you eat it, it goes right through your system. We can't digest it. There's only a very small percentage of humans that can digest chitin with chitinase. But this is really rare. The majority of us do not have that luxury. So it is important to know that when you're buying products, you want to make sure that you do that they have made an extraction with the mushrooms, because without the extraction, we're basically just eating powder that's going to go right through us. We might benefit a very small percentage um, from the medicinal compounds that might have broken loose when it was ground up into a powder, but most of the compounds are going to stay inside the cells. And so, in order to get them out, you need to make an extract. This is why extracts are important, especially when you want to take herbal or mushroom supplements. Now, in order to break the mushroom open, get the cells broken, and extract these compounds, you need to understand that there's different types of compounds inside the mushroom. Some of these compounds are polar, so they're water soluble. Water can pull them out. They can dissolve in water. And other compounds are non-polar, which means they can't dissolve in water. They hate water. They're hydrophobic. So you need an oil or a fat or a really strong type of alcohol to pull them out. So you need to understand that all these compounds are found inside the mushroom. So mushrooms have phenols, sterols, statins, sugars, triterpenes, any kind of terpenes, a variety of compounds inside the mushroom. So these compounds all have different properties, and we usually make mushroom products to benefit from these compounds. So when you're looking for a product, you want to make sure that it's made with mushrooms, but you want to make sure that it is using a dual extraction or a full spectrum extraction, so that you get all of the compounds out of the mushrooms. Because I've seen some companies online that are making some crazy claims saying that mushrooms only need a water extraction or they only need the alcohol extraction. Especially, I think, and particularly, I saw one company that was talking about lion's mane, and they were saying how lion's mane only needs to be water extracted. You don't need to do the alcohol or any kind of other extraction on lion's mane, because you only want to do the extraction on water, because the compounds that you want for lion's mane can only be pulled by water. And this is false, because lion's mane has two key components inside of itself. And these are two diterpenoids that are not water soluble. You actually want to extract them with an oil or an alcohol. So some of this information that you read online is false. Some of these companies out there, they're just, they hear about mushrooms and how good they are, and they just want to hop on that bandwagon. They're like, okay, let's make mushroom products, but they don't really research what needs to be done to extract the properties from these mushrooms. So you want to be careful with whichever companies you choose. Now, another aspect to this whole situation is that some companies like to use mycelium or grains. So what they do is they take grains, specifically brown rice. They'll take brown rice, they'll cook it, sterilize it, inject it with the mycelium of a fungus. They'll let it colonize, and then when it's done, um, and this they could either let it fruit or not fruit. My thinking is big companies don't have time for the whole fruiting process, but I'm not sure. Don't quote me on this. I'm just speculating. But what I do know is that they take the grains and they grind them up, and they sell you this powder that is made with brown rice, basically myceliated brown rice, which is basically a lot of filler. You're basically getting ground up rice with a little bit of mycelium because although the mycelium in mushrooms does produce medicinal compounds, it does not make the quantities of medicinal compounds that an actual fruiting body makes. So even though you are getting the mycelium, the percentage of medicinal compounds is very low unless they're being made with a mycelium that has been fermented in a specific type of liquid fermentation. There's different types of liquid fermentations, and I'm referring to a very specific one that I'm very sure most companies are not using. So if they're making claims about the mycelium having more benefits than the fruiting bodies, that might not be the case unless they're using that specific type of fermentation process, which I can talk about in a different video. Now that we know the difference between the mycelium and the fruiting bodies, you need to understand that some companies make extracts with mycelium. And it's very easy, it's very cheap, because you can just take a bag of grain, inoculate it, it'll colonize with mycelium, grind it up, and you can make an extract out of that, or you can just sell it to the customers like that, which some companies do. I'm not going to throw any names out there, but there are companies that do this, and they may understand what they're doing with the mushrooms, or they may not, and so they're just making it. I'm not really sure what the motives or the knowledge is behind that, but what you're getting with the brown rice is a lot of filler. So you're basically getting a rice extract with a little bit of mycelium extract, medicinal mushroom mycelium extract. So the majority of that extract is mostly rice or grains, and then the rest, the small percentage of it is actually has medicinal properties. And you can learn about this by going into the International Journal of Medicinal Mushroom Research and looking at some of the studies where they take different extracts from different companies and test the potency of the medicinal compounds. A lot of them fall really short on the percentage, definitely less than 50% medicinal compounds. So it's very important that you understand all of this when you're looking for products. Now, there are some companies that are really great that do make full spectrum fruiting body extracts with high concentrations of mushrooms, and they use very sophisticated equipment. Now, here next to me, I have an extract that I'm preparing for a big event that's coming up, but this is like the second phase of the extract. I just wanted to show you guys a little example, but I'm not, this is not how I extracted it. I'm just storing it in this, and then I'm gonna move it into the next phase. So the other part of the extract and the mushroom supplement is that you need to make sure that you know where your mushrooms are coming from. A lot of companies use mushrooms that come from countries where the pollution in the air is really bad, and there is a lot of contaminants in the water and the soil. So you want to be careful where, you want to find out where they're getting their mushrooms from, and what kind of facilities they're working out of. The next thing that you also want to be careful with when it comes to mushrooms is, it's not really careful, but there's a long debate on whether medicinal mushrooms that are lab grown are better than wild forage mushrooms. So um, I make my products with wild harvested mushroom fruiting bodies, and there's only like three mushrooms that I actually have to grow myself because they're hard to find in the wild, and that would be cordyceps, shiitake, and lion's mane. Everything else that I use in my products is wild, and I tend to lean towards the side of the wild aspect of medicinal mushrooms because, um, for one, uh, lab-grown medicinal mushrooms are grown in sterile environments or semi-sterile. They try to keep it very clean so that the mushroom doesn't have to struggle. It can grow properly and not contaminate. Um, and this is really good for the quality and cleanliness for the mushroom. But most mushrooms in the wild need certain stimuli. So they need this environmental pressure from sunlight, snow, rain, bacteria, viruses, other fungi, and animals. So the mushrooms, when they're in the wild, they they produce all of these metabolites, antivirals, antibacterials, antifungals, all these compounds that they make to protect themselves from other viruses, from other funguses, viruses, and bacteria. Um, they need all these stimuli so that they can make these compounds. Otherwise, I don't think there would be a very much of a need for them to make these compounds. So a lot of people say that lab-grown mushrooms are stronger. I don't really agree with that, but I can't say for sure whether it is or it isn't because this is being debated by scientists for the last, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. But I always think that things from the wild are better because they're natural. They're they're growing far away from civilization. They're growing in organic places in the forest where they're usually pretty clean, and these mushrooms have the necessity to make these compounds that make them strong. And the reason why we want to take them is because of these compounds. So I'm not sure about which ones are better for sure, but I think the wild is better. I explained why I think that is. The only other way that lab grown mushrooms can actually produce a high number of compounds that you want is by um, exposing them to certain um, wavelengths of light. So different wavelengths will cause them to produce more of a certain compound, but you can't. You have to pick and choose which compounds you want. It won't be potent in everything. So that's the only way that I've learned that you can actually make mushrooms produce these compounds. But either way, lab grown mushrooms are better than the mycelium by far. So this is all the knowledge that I have to explain to people on a daily basis when I'm selling or when I'm making products. It's very important to know this when you're looking for mushroom supplements because there's a lot of companies that can act predatory or they just simply don't know what they're doing. Either way, it's not good for you. So it's important for you to know the difference between um, the different types of mushroom products. So there are companies that I support out there that are doing incredible work, making extractions the proper way, full spectrum extractions. They understand what they're doing. They're using either wild or laboratory or lab grown fruiting bodies of mushrooms. Very important. So when you look for products out there, make sure it says mushroom fruiting bodies and try to get away from the grains and the mycelium. That's usually not a good indication when you want to take supplements, unless you want to spend a lot of money on something that's not as potent as other things. So there's my take on medicinal mushroom supplements. Just so you know, my extracts are made with wild fruiting bodies of mushrooms, and I do a full spectrum extraction to get the most of the compounds out of the cell walls, and I only give you the medicine. So it's important to break the plants down or the mushrooms down um, into their basic components, and then bring it back together by taking the medicinal compounds and then giving it back to you. So you're still getting everything inside the cells, except for the any kind of material that's discarded, which is just broken down denatured proteins or cell chitinase, or sorry, chitin, and other cellular wall structures. So everything else gets discarded, but the medicine gets pulled out and it's kept together. So you basically take the plant, you're still keeping the entire plant as a whole, and you're consuming it, so you're getting all of the benefits. So that's all I wanted to explain to you guys today. I know this was a very long video, but it's very important. I have to tell people this every single day. So I figured I'd make a video so that you guys could enjoy and learn from this. And be careful when you're buying supplements out there. If you don't buy mine, at least make sure that you're looking for these characteristics in mushroom products. So thank you for watching, guys. I know it was a long video. I hope you guys have a great week. We'll see you in the next video.